Trials of the heart. A love forged in shadows. You're such an easy target, it's hilarious. Emily's cackle echoed through the crowded school hallway, her cruel words sharp as ever. I barely dodged the stiletto heel she flung in my direction, stumbling as laughter erupted around me. My face burned with embarrassment as I tried to escape her torment, weaving through the crowd of students who watched with delight. Her friends, cold and calculating, laughed in unison, their eyes sparkling with amusement. Jasmine, who once felt like a friend, stood on the sidelines, her expression unreadable. I couldn't tell if she felt pity or if she was secretly enjoying my humiliation. My heart sank further, the bitterness of betrayal swirling in my chest. Desperate to escape, I bolted toward the nearest classroom and slammed the door behind me. The room was empty, a refuge from the chaos outside. I leaned against the door, my heart pounding, trying to catch my breath. The sound of laughter and whispers faded away, but the sting of the moment still echoed in my mind. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow through the window. It was a reminder that the school day was nearly over, and with it, any chance I had of redeeming myself. My backpack dropped to the floor with a thud, and inside, I felt the weight of the crumpled love letter I'd written to Jasmine. How could I have been so naive to think she might care? Just as I thought I was alone, the door creaked open and a figure slipped inside. It was Lauren, one of the few people who had never seemed to get caught up in Emily's games. Her gaze was soft and filled with understanding as she stepped closer. "You okay?" she asked quietly, her voice gentle. I nodded, though the lump in my throat made it hard to speak. She sat down beside me on the floor, and for a moment we were silent, the tension between us melting away in the comfort of shared understanding. "I heard what happened with the letter," she said softly. "You know it's not your fault, right? Emily. She's just like that. She likes having control over people." Her words were a small comfort, but it was something. "Why does she do it?" I whispered. "What's the point of being so cruel?" Lauren shook her head. "It's what gives her power, I guess. People like her feed off others' pain." We sat there in the fading light, the bell ringing in the distance, signaling the end of the school day. The hallway outside grew quiet, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope. "She's not invincible," Lauren said, her voice stronger now. "We can stand up to her. Together." I looked at her, and for the first time I believed it. Together we could fight back. We didn't have to suffer under Emily's cruel reign anymore. As we stood to leave, I grabbed the crumpled letter, smoothing it out in my hands. It was a symbol of all the pain Emily had caused, but also of the love that still had the power to exist, untainted by her cruelty. The next few days, Lauren and I worked on a plan. We decided to gather evidence against Emily. If we could expose her manipulations and cruelty, maybe her control over the school would finally break. We interviewed the students she had hurt, compiling a record of all her misdeeds. Finally, we put everything together in an article for the school newspaper. With wit and truth, we crafted an exposé that would reveal the real Emily to everyone. When it was published, the reaction was immediate. The halls buzzed with whispers and shocked looks. Emily's carefully built facade began to crumble. But Emily wasn't one to let things go easily. She confronted us in the library, her eyes blazing with fury. "You think you've won?" she sneered. "This isn't over." Lauren stood beside me, her hand squeezing mine for strength. "We're not afraid of you anymore." The following weeks were tense as Emily challenged us to a series of trials, each designed to test our courage and resolve. From navigating a dark maze in the gym to solving riddles that led us all around the school, Lauren and I faced each challenge together. We trusted each other completely, and it was that trust that got us through. The final trial, though, was the hardest. Emily forced us to confront our deepest fears. Mine was the fear of never being truly loved, while Lauren's was being abandoned by those she cared about. But in the end, we conquered our fears, standing strong in our friendship and support for each other. Emily had lost. Her power over us, over everyone, was gone. The students saw through her, and for the first time she was the one left standing alone. At prom, the culmination of the school year, Lauren and I walked into the transformed gym, not as outcasts but as equals. The same people who once whispered and laughed behind our backs now looked at us with respect. Emily tried one last time to assert her dominance, but the crowd no longer feared her. Together, the students began to chant, "We're not alone," and the strength of their voices overpowered her. In the end, it was our friendship, our belief in each other that won the day. We had faced the worst and come out stronger. As we danced under the lights, I looked at Lauren, my heart swelling with gratitude and affection. She smiled at me, her eyes warm and full of something deeper. "You know, I think we're more than just friends now," she whispered. I smiled back, my heart light. "I think you're right." We didn't need words to understand what we had found in each other. It was a bond stronger than anything Emily could have ever destroyed. A friendship built on trust, courage, and love. Together, we were ready to face whatever the future held. As the days passed after the prom, Lauren and I began to see life in a new light. The trials that Marguerite had put us through had shifted something deep inside us, making every moment we spent together feel like it had been earned through fire and steel. Yet, even with Marguerite's fall from grace, her shadow still lingered over the school. We walked into school one morning, hand in hand, and immediately noticed the tension in the air. Whispers followed us down the hallway. I could feel the weight of every glance, some filled with curiosity, others with lingering resentment. It wasn't over, not yet. Marguerite might have lost her grip on her minions, but her influence hadn't completely evaporated. "I feel like we're still being watched," Lauren muttered as we headed toward our lockers. "We are," I said, my eyes scanning the crowd. The unease in the air was thick. People weren't sure if they should celebrate her downfall or fear her comeback. And of course, there was the growing rumor that she wasn't done with us yet. During lunch, we sat in our usual corner of the cafeteria, picking at our food and discussing what might come next. "Do you think Marguerite will try something else?" Lauren asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked around the room. Her former friends, those who had laughed at us and stood by her side during her reign, were scattered, sitting apart, almost as if they were lost without her. Jasmine, who had started distancing herself from Marguerite after the prom, was sitting with a few other students who seemed just as unsure of where they belonged. "She might," I said slowly, "but I don't think she can hurt us like before. Not now." Before Lauren could respond, the cafeteria doors swung open with a loud creak. All eyes turned toward the entrance, and there she was, Marguerite. Her expression was cold, her usual smug smile replaced by something darker. She didn't have the same commanding presence, but there was still a dangerous spark in her eyes. She walked in alone, her high heels clicking ominously on the linoleum floor as she headed straight toward our table. My stomach tightened and I could feel Lauren tense beside me. "Here we go," I muttered under my breath. Marguerite stopped in front of us, her icy gaze locked onto mine. For a moment, the entire cafeteria seemed to hold its breath. "I hope you're proud of yourselves," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you've won, don't you?" I met her stare, refusing to back down. "We don't need to win, Marguerite. We just wanted the truth out." Her lip curled and she leaned in closer, her voice lowering to a whisper that only Lauren and I could hear. "This isn't over. You think you've destroyed me, but I'm stronger than you know. I'll find a way to come back. And when I do, you'll regret crossing me." Lauren squeezed my hand under the table, her silent support giving me the courage to stand up to Marguerite's threat. "We're not afraid of you anymore," I said firmly. "Do what you want, but you'll never have the power over us that you used to." For a moment, Marguerite's eyes flashed with something. Was it doubt? Fear? But just as quickly, her expression hardened again. She gave a cold laugh and turned on her heel, striding out of the cafeteria as quickly as she had entered. The room buzzed with whispered conversations once she was gone, but I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Lauren rested her head on my shoulder. "She's not going to give up easily, is she?" Lauren said softly. "No," I replied, my gaze still fixed on the door. "But that doesn't matter. We've got each other." Lauren smiled. Her eyes filled with a warmth that chased away the chill Marguerite had left behind. "Yeah, we do. And together we can handle whatever comes next." As the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, I glanced around at the students who had once been Marguerite's loyal followers. They were starting to find their own voices again, freed from her manipulative grip. Jasmine caught my eye from across the room and gave me a tentative nod before turning back to her group. There was hope in that small gesture. Maybe, just maybe, the days of living in Marguerite's shadow were coming to an end. It wouldn't be easy, but Lauren and I had survived the worst she could throw at us. Whatever was next, we would face it head-on together. And as we walked to our next class, hand in hand, I felt a surge of strength, because this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about building a life free from fear, a life filled with love, and a future where Marguerite's reign of terror was nothing but a distant memory.